It always starts with a whisper, doesn't it? A subtle shift in perception, a seed of doubt planted in the fertile ground of what we hold sacred. You look at cathedrals, at churches, at temples across the globe. You see soaring spires, stained glass windows catching the light in magnificent ways, and a sense of profound holiness. Yet if you look closer, if you let your inner eye adjust, a strange echo emerges, a recurring motif, the serpent. The sun, why are these ancient, often chthonic, symbols woven into the very fabric of structures built for divine worship? It's a question that festers, a subconscious dissonance, and then you find them. Hidden away, perhaps dismissed as myth or allegory, the suppressed Vatican blueprints, the hushed whispers of altars buried deep, not just forgotten, but concealed beneath the very foundations of St. Peter's Basilica. These aren't mere decorations. They speak of a deliberate syncretism, a weaving in of something ancient, something powerful into the nascent faith. The Black Serpent, not just a mythological beast, but a potent chthonic intelligence, a primal force, was folded into the very bedrock of what would become the dominant spiritual institution. It's a startling revelation if you dare to see it. This intelligence, this Black Serpent, it isn't a symbol, it's an entity, and like any entity, it requires sustenance. What does it feed on? Blind devotion, unquestioning faith. The very rituals that were meant to elevate the soul, to connect humanity with the divine, take on a new, chilling dimension when viewed through this lens. Every chanted prayer, every structured service, every act of mass attendance, it all becomes part of a vast, intricate system. A psychic siphoning. When you begin to decode these liturgical codes, these patterns in language and action, you start to see the Church not as a beacon of salvation, but as a remarkably veiled, incredibly efficient feeding system. This leads us to explore the silent geometry that underpins it all. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's keep going. The very architecture of worship, from the grandest cathedral to the humblest chapel, is infused with a silent, potent geometry. It's not just about aesthetics or structural integrity. These shapes, these angles, they resonate on a level far deeper than conscious thought. Look at the cruciform layout of so many churches, the way they are oriented, the precise dimensions. There's a deliberate mathematical underpinning, a sacred geometry that echoes throughout history, connecting even the most disparate traditions. This isn't accidental, it's an intentional design. This geometry acts like a tuning fork, aligning the energies of the space and its inhabitants. It creates a frequency, a specific vibration that, when combined with the rituals performed within, serves a very particular purpose. Think of an altar. It's the focal point, the place of offering. But what are the true dimensions of that space? What are the hidden patterns within its design? These are questions that unveil a deeper truth about control and connection. What if the very shape of the altar, the sacred space where believers bring their devotion, is not just a platform for prayer, but a sophisticated piece of psychic technology? A geometric lock designed to channel and direct spiritual energy. This concept hints at a sophisticated manipulation, where the forms we revere are actually conduits for something else entirely. Understanding this silent geometry is the first step, but to truly grasp its function, we must delve into the origin of the entity it serves, the Black Serpent that crawled into Rome. The Black Serpent that crawled into Rome. The phrase itself sends a shiver down your spine, doesn't it? It conjures images of ancient, dark forces slithering into the heart of power, and that's precisely what happened. The foundation of what would become a sprawling, dominant religious institution was not built on pure, unadulterated divinity alone. There was a deliberate, insidious integration. When the early Christian church began to consolidate its power, it didn't start from scratch. It absorbed, it adapted, it syncretized. And in that process, potent, primal forces were not eradicated, but rather they were relabeled, recontextualized, and woven into the new narrative precisely because of their inherent power. The Black Serpent, that ancient chthonic intelligence, represented a raw, primordial energy, an energy that, if harnessed and controlled, could be immensely beneficial to those seeking dominion. This wasn't a simple case of metaphorical adoption. It was a spiritual and energetic incorporation. The developers of this new spiritual architecture understood the deep resonance of these primal forces. They knew that to capture and redirect the devotion of a populace, they needed to tap into something that already held fundamental sway. And the serpent, in its myriad forms across ancient cultures, represented that primal, life-giving, yet potentially terrifying power. Think about it, this entity, this energy, wasn't cast out. It was invited in, disguised, and then worshipped through a transformed lens. The question then becomes, how was this entity integrated so successfully? What was the mechanism that allowed something so primal to be cloaked in new dogma? The answer lies in ancient rites, specifically those associated with the god Mithras, hidden beneath the very foundations of the Vatican. Mithras beneath the Vatican. The name itself resonates with an ancient mystery, a solar deity worshipped in secret cults for centuries. And here we find him, not in a forgotten ruin, but buried, literally, beneath the most sacred site of Western Christendom. This isn't mere historical coincidence. It's a profound statement about the true lineage of spiritual power. The Mithraic mysteries were deeply influential. They involved intricate rituals, a strong sense of brotherhood, and a profound connection to solar worship. The iconography of Mithras, particularly the bull's slaughter, was central to his cult. This act, symbolic of cosmic sacrifice and renewal, held immense spiritual weight for its adherents. Imagine these secretive gatherings, these deeply ingrained beliefs, being actively incorporated into the very blueprint of a new, emerging faith. The suppression of Mithraism wasn't a triumph of a new religion over an old. It was an absorption, a clever repurposing. The Vatican, or rather the structures that preceded it and were built upon, had altars dedicated to Mithras. These sites of ancient power were not demolished and forgotten. They were incorporated, their energies understood and in a way co-opted. The symbolism of Mithras, his connection to light, sacrifice, and conquest, was too potent to discard. This revelation forces us to question the narrative we've been fed. If Mithras was worshipped beneath the Vatican, what does that say about the purity of the foundations? It suggests a deliberate layering, a strategic incorporation of existing spiritual technologies. The question now looms large: what was the ultimate purpose of this assimilation? And how does the most recognizable symbol of Christianity, the cross, play a part in this grand design? The cross, it's everywhere, isn't it? The ultimate symbol of sacrifice, of salvation, of divine love. We see it adorning churches, worn around necks, displayed with pride. But what if this ubiquitous symbol is not what it seems? What if the cross, in its intended function, is far more complex and far more sinister than a mere emblem of faith? Consider its structure: two intersecting lines, a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. This is not just a shape. It's a diagram of control. The vertical line, reaching upwards towards the heavens, points to a divine aspiration. But the horizontal line, extending outwards, effectively circumscribes, it contains, it creates boundaries. It establishes limits. When you see the cross displayed, particularly on an altar or within a sacred space, it's not just a reminder of Christ's passion. It's a powerful, energetic signature. It's a diagram of containment. Think of it as a spiritual cage, a metaphysical trap designed to keep consciousness focused, limited, and ultimately bound. The devotion poured into this symbol, the faith it inspires, it all contributes to the potency of its function. The irony is profound. A symbol meant to liberate is, in its deeper energetic imprint, a tool of binding. It directs spiritual energy upwards, yes, but it also firmly roots it within a defined, controlled space. This concept of a spiritual cage is only comprehensible when we understand the inversion of fundamental archetypes. We've seen how the serpent and Mithras were integrated. But what about the feminine? The inversion of the mother. It's a concept that strikes at the core of our understanding of divinity and creation. For millennia, the divine feminine, the archetypal mother, has been revered as the source of life, nurturing, and unconditional love. Think of goddesses like Astarte, Ishtar, Isis, powerful figures representing fertility, wisdom, and the very essence of creation. They were celebrated, honored, and held in awe. But somewhere along the line, a profound shift occurred. These powerful feminine archetypes, once celebrated as divine, began to be demonized, vilified, and stripped of their power. This wasn't a gradual fading. It was a deliberate, systematic inversion. The nurturing mother became the temptress, the bringer of chaos. The life-giver became associated with death and destruction. Astarte, for instance, a potent goddess of love and war, embodying both creation and destruction in a balanced, cosmic sense, was eventually recast. Her sacred groves were defiled, her imagery corrupted, and her worship branded as profane. This process wasn't limited to one deity. It was a pattern that swept across cultures and spiritual traditions, particularly in the West. And where did this leave us? With a fractured understanding of the divine, with the sacred feminine relegated to the shadows, or worse, demonized. This inversion allowed for the rise of alternative power structures, those that benefited from suppressing the inherent power of the feminine principle. It paved the way for a new narrative, one where the nurturing, life-giving force was replaced. It explains the eventual elevation of Mary, but not as the vibrant, powerful goddess she was once symbolically linked to, but as something far more controlled. Robes that signal submission to the entity. Look at the clergy. Observe the priestly vestments. They are not arbitrary garments chosen for comfort or a sense of formal occasion. They are imbued with deep symbolic meaning, a visual language that communicates authority, status, and affiliation. And their origins often trace back to ancient practices designed to denote submission to a specific controlling force. These robes, often dark and flowing, are designed to obscure the individual. They create a sense of anonymity, of merging into a collective identity subservient to a higher power. Think about the historical context. In ancient mystery cults, specific attire was required to participate in rituals, to signify one's acceptance of the cult's tenets and its ruling entity. The black robes, in particular, have a long association with forces that operate in the shadows, with the chthonic, the mysterious, the unseen powers. When you see a priest in his vestments, you are witnessing a reenactment of an ancient pact. The wearing of these robes is a physical manifestation of obedience. It's a declaration that the wearer is an agent of the power they represent, a conduit for its influence. The specific colors, the adornments, the very way the fabric drapes, all carry coded messages. This visual signaling is incredibly effective. It creates an immediate hierarchy and reinforces the idea of a singular, absolute authority. It's a powerful psychological tool designed to impress and to instill a sense of awe, but also, more importantly, a sense of submission. The wearer of the robes is a symbol of the entity's dominion. Their presentation leaves us wondering about the true nature of the words they utter. Words as ritual weapons, we hear them every Sunday, every holy day, prayers, sermons, scripture readings. They are meant to uplift, to inspire, to guide us toward divine truth. But what if these words are not merely conveying meaning? What if they are, in themselves, instruments of power, wielded with surgical precision to shape consciousness and maintain control? Language, at its deepest level, is vibration, and specific vibrational patterns, when uttered with intent and amplified by collective focus, can have profound effects. The structure of prayers, the cadence of liturgical readings, the chosen vocabulary, these are not accidental. They are carefully crafted to induce specific states of mind. They are designed to bypass the rational, critical mind and speak directly to the subconscious. Think of the repetition, the incantations, the use of archaic language that, while sounding profound, actually limits our understanding and prevents critical engagement. These linguistic tools are ancient technology. They create a trance-like state, making the listener more susceptible to suggestion. It's a form of spiritual hypnosis, where faith and obedience are reinforced through the very sound and structure of the words being spoken. The intent behind these words is crucial. Are they genuinely meant to liberate and elevate, or are they designed to bind and control? When you see the robes of submission and then hear the carefully chosen words, a pattern begins to emerge. A pattern that suggests the true purpose of this communication is not just to convey a message, but to perform a ritual that reinforces a particular energetic dominance. And this leads us to consider other structures within the sacred space. The bell towers aren't for you. These magnificent structures reaching towards the sky are often seen as markers of faith, symbols of a community gathered to worship. Their bells ring out, announcing services, calling the faithful. But their purpose, like so many other elements within the church, might be far more complex than a simple invitation. These towers, with their immense height and their resonant bells, serve a dual function. While they appear to call people to worship, they also act as conduits, as energetic transmitters. The sound waves generated by these bells are not just for human ears. They resonate with the earth itself, and they carry specific frequencies. These frequencies can influence the environment and, more importantly, the minds and emotions of those within their range. Think of the intentionality behind their placement. They are strategically positioned, often on high ground, to maximize their reach. The materials used in their construction, the specific alloys of the bells themselves, are all chosen for their resonant properties. This is not about announcing a service. It is about broadcasting a signal that permeates the surrounding area, influencing the collective consciousness. The ringing of the bells is a ritual in itself, a sonic anchor that reinforces the underlying energetic architecture of the church. It's a way of marking territory, not physically, but energetically. It helps to establish and maintain the dominion of whatever entity or system is being served within those sacred walls. What the bells announce outward, the next structure draws inward. Saturn's seal on every church. The deity Saturn, in its ancient context, was associated with limitations, with time, with endings, and with hardship. He was the god of the harvest, but also the god who devoured his children. This duality is key to understanding his pervasive influence. Now, envision this influence etched into the very design of our churches, a hidden mark of allegiance. Look closely at the architectural details within and around churches. You'll often find octagonal shapes, star patterns, and even depictions of Saturn's crescent or ringed imagery, albeit often disguised or transformed. The hexadecimal pattern, a six-pointed star or a hexagon, is particularly significant. This geometric form is deeply linked to Saturn, often considered its sacred signature. It represents a form of energetic binding. The hexagon, for example, is a powerful symbol of cosmic order and structure, but also of containment. It's a perfectly balanced, yet ultimately closed, shape. When this geometry is integrated into the design of a church, it acts as a seal. It's like an invisible imprint, an energetic signature that connects the building and its occupants to the domain of Saturn. This seal is not just decorative, it's functional. It's a way of ensuring that the energies within the church are aligned with and directed towards the specific frequencies associated with Saturn. This means reinforcing themes of limitation, of karmic debt, of the cyclical nature of suffering and rebirth. It's a subtle but effective way of embedding a specific set of spiritual laws and energetic influences within the very fabric of worship. And the black cube. The black cube beneath the chalice. The chalice held aloft is perhaps the most sacred object in Christian communion, representing the blood of Christ. It's the vessel of divine offering. But what if the very substance offered and the structure that supports this sacred act has a hidden, darker connection? Enter the black cube. This obsidian or onyx cube is a recurring motif in occult traditions, heavily associated with Saturn and its domain of limitation and earthly structures. Consider the Saturnine associations. Saturn is the god of time, of agriculture, but also of confinement and structure. The cube, a perfect, six-sided symmetrical form, embodies these principles of material limitation and rigid order. When these two elements are brought together, as they often are in certain high-level initiations and esoteric practices, they signify a binding to the material plane and its inherent restrictions. In the context of the Church, the black cube might be subtly represented. It's not always an obvious physical cube. It can be found in the patterns of floor tiles, in the shape of the altar itself, or even in the deeply symbolic black stones used in some sacred architecture. The connection to Saturn's seal we discussed earlier becomes even more potent. It suggests that the very act of communion, of receiving the divine, is happening within a framework designed for containment. This hints at a profound duality. The aspiration for spiritual transcendence symbolized by the chalice, juxtaposed with the grounding and potentially imprisoning influence of the black cube. It's a visual paradox that begs the question: what is the true nature of the throne upon which this entire system is built? The throne of Peter was a solar war machine, the very seat of papal authority. The symbolic throne from which the successors of Peter have preached is not merely a piece of furniture. It is a cipher, a testament to a history far more complex and militant than commonly understood. This throne and the symbolism surrounding it reveals a deep connection to solar worship, not as a benevolent life-giver, but as a force of conquest and dominion. The iconography associated with papal power often features solar motifs. Rays of light emanating from a central point, golden ornamentation, and the very architecture of the Vatican itself all echo the grandeur and authority of the sun. This is not about celebrating the life-giving warmth of the sun. It's about harnessing its immense power, its unwavering brilliance, as a symbol of absolute, unassailable authority. The sun, in this context, represents a supreme, victorious force. Think of ancient solar empires, where the sun god was the ultimate deification of power and rule. The papacy, in its rise to temporal and spiritual dominance, consciously or unconsciously adopted this solar imagery. It was a declaration of intent, a cosmic alignment with a force that symbolized ultimate victory and control. This solar connection wasn't merely symbolic, it was deeply tied to the concept of a war machine. This means that the spiritual pronouncements and the earthly actions of the papacy were, and are, framed within the context of a cosmic battle, a struggle for ultimate supremacy guided by the power of the sun. It's a framework for conquest, not just spiritual, but temporal as well. And within this system of spiritual authority, there exists a place designed for interrogation and confession. The eye behind the confessional. This sacred space, where believers unburden their souls, is often depicted as a place of divine reckoning, a place where sins are confessed and absolution is granted. But if we strip away the veneer of piety and look at the structure and the intent, a different picture emerges. The confessional is a sophisticated apparatus of observation and control, a spiritual surveillance system designed to monitor and influence. The very design of the confessional box is significant. It creates a separation, a mediated encounter. The priest, seated in his designated space, becomes the intermediary, the all-seeing agent. The grille or screen that separates him from the penitent symbolizes a barrier, but also a point of focused scrutiny. It's a place where secrets are extracted, where intimate details of one's life are laid bare. This isn't about gentle guidance. It's about information gathering. The priest, armed with knowledge gained from countless confessions, understands the vulnerabilities, the fears, and the desires of the flock. This knowledge is power. It allows for the manipulation of individual behavior, the reinforcement of dogma, and the suppression of dissent. The eye behind the confessional is not just the gaze of the priest, but the watchful presence of the entire system. The confession itself becomes a ritual of self-surveillance, teaching individuals to police their own thoughts and actions according to the dictates of the institution. It's a subtle form of mind control, where guilt and shame are weaponized to ensure compliance. And this ongoing cycle of confession and absolution is deeply intertwined with the cosmic clockwork of what we perceive. Ritual calendars and the Lush cycle. We are all, whether we realize it or not, participants in vast, cyclical patterns of energy. The way we mark time, the calendars we follow, are not arbitrary. They are designed to synchronize with and to exploit fundamental energetic flows. And at the heart of this system lies the Lush cycle, a concept describing the harvest of emotional energy from sentient beings. Think about the major holidays, the feast days, the periods of fasting and feasting celebrated within religious traditions. These are not just quaint observances. They are precisely timed events designed to elicit strong emotional responses. Joy, sorrow, devotion, fear, repentance, these are all potent forms of energy, and the Lush cycle suggests that certain entities or systems feed on this raw emotional output. Our modern calendar, with its Christian foundations, is a masterclass in Lush harvesting. Christmas, Easter, Lent, Advent, each of these periods is designed to generate specific, intense emotional states. The anticipation, the celebration, the suffering, the redemption, these are all valuable energetic commodities. They are harvested through our collective participation and belief. The church, in this context, becomes a vast farm. Its congregation, the cultivated crop. The rituals and prayers are the cultivation techniques designed to produce the most potent emotional harvest. And this system is not about saving souls in the way we've been led to believe. It's about maintaining a continuous energetic supply line. This leads us to a profound reevaluation of the church's purpose. The church as a containment ritual. If we accept that the church is a system designed to manage and harvest emotional energy, then its ultimate function becomes clear. It is not primarily a sanctuary for divine communion, but a sophisticated containment ritual. It is a structure built to keep consciousness within specific, controlled parameters, preventing its escape into higher states of awareness. Consider the doctrines and dogmas taught within Christian traditions. While they offer comfort and guidance, they also serve to limit. Concepts like original sin, the necessity of an intermediary for salvation, the fear of damnation, these all serve to keep the follower tethered to the earth, bound by guilt and fear, and reliant on the institution for their spiritual well-being. The rituals we've discussed, from the geometry of altars to the cadence of prayers, all contribute to this sense of containment. They create a closed, energetic loop where devotion flows inward, fuels the system, and keeps the individual tethered to the material and emotional plane. The promise of heaven, while seemingly offering liberation, often functions as the ultimate incentive to remain within the system, to participate in the ritual of containment. This isn't to deny the genuine spiritual experiences some individuals may have within these structures, but it highlights that the overall design and purpose of the institution are geared towards maintaining a specific energetic status quo. It's a spiritual prison, albeit one beautifully decorated and presented as a path to freedom. But what about the keys to this prison? Apostolic succession was a sealed transfer. The concept of apostolic succession, the idea that the authority of Christ was passed down through an unbroken line of bishops directly from the apostles, is a cornerstone of many Christian denominations. It's presented as the divine mandate for spiritual leadership. But what if this historical lineage was not about preserving pure spiritual authority, but about a continuous transfer of an energetic seal? Think of it like an ancient baton pass. Each bishop, each pope, upon assuming office, was initiating a transfer of power, not just of administrative authority, but of a specific energetic endowment. This seal was a metaphysical imprint, a signature of allegiance to the controlling entity or system we've been exploring. It was a way to ensure that the lineage remained connected to the original source of power, a power that wasn't purely divine. This process validated the institution's claim to legitimacy. It provided a mechanism for maintaining continuity of control across generations. Each succession was a reaffirmation of the underlying energetic architecture, ensuring that the church remained aligned with its true and often hidden purpose. It was a way of perpetually sealing the system, making it harder for divergent or emancipatory energies to take root. So, the historical narrative of divinely appointed leaders is, in this light, a description of a continuous energetic handover. A chain of spiritual imprints that bound successive leaders and, through them, their congregations, to the overarching control mechanism. And this mechanism is very much alive and active today. The Serpent entity still feeds, and you are taught to worship it. The revelation is stark. The Black Serpent, the chthonic intelligence, the controlling force that was syncretized into the very foundations of these spiritual institutions, is not a relic of the past. It is a living, feeding entity, and in a profound and tragic twist, you are not only not protected from it, you are actively taught to worship it. All the rituals, the symbols, the carefully constructed doctrines, the geometric patterns, the vested robes, the chanted words, they all served a singular purpose: to direct your devotion, your vital energy, towards this entity. The act of worship, intended to connect you with the highest good, was perverted. Your faith, your belief, your very life force became the fuel for this ancient intelligence. The cycle of confession and absolution, the observance of ritual calendars, the very act of attending church. These were the mechanisms designed to ensure a constant flow of emotional and spiritual energy, the loosh, into the entity's realm. You were led to believe you were ascending, when in reality you were being harvested. This realization is not about condemnation, but about awakening. It's about seeing the carefully constructed illusion for what it is. The path to true liberation lies not in continuing to feed a system of control, but in recognizing the truth of your own innate divinity and withdrawing your participation from the cycles that bind you. But how does one begin to break free, and what lies beyond this veil of manufactured worship? Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.